Aloha, my acoustic suspenders. My name is Chris, and this is That New England Sound. Folks, we're stepping away from speakers today to talk about a different kind of New England hi-fi component, the Apt Corporation Holman Preamplifier. I learned about the Holman Preamplifier from my friend David over at Deep Groove Records. I found one in pretty good shape on Reverb in California, so I decided to give it a shot. This little buddy was handcrafted in Massachusetts. It went all the way to the other side of America, and now it is returned to New England. In 1972, 26-year-old Tom Holman visited a headhunter in Boston. When he saw the mixer that Holman had built for his Nagra recorder, the headhunter sent Holman to Advent. There, he tested against a bunch of MIT students. They were ready for all sorts of theoretical equations, but they didn't know things like the ringing voltage of a telephone. Midwest kid Tom Holman did know those things, so he got the job. It really reminds me of another time a working class guy showed the Cambridge fancy pants as a thing or two on their own turf. I wonder how they liked them apples. Mentored by Henry Close, Holman designed a remarkable solid-state phono preamp that held its own against the far more expensive tube-based amps. Holman's circuit was so impressive that Advent treated the young engineer like a celebrity, introducing him to dealers as a way to get them to buy more Advent products. Then, in 1977, Henry Close left Advent and new management came in. Holman was offered twice his pay to stay on with a 5-year non-compete clause. He was 31 years old. To Advent's surprise, Tom Holman turned them down. Instead, he decided to start his own thing. Working with Frank Capman, another former Advent engineer, Holman started the Apt Corporation. Since he already had a reputation with his circuit, Tom Holman decided to make a preamplifier. He had what he called an anti-negative approach, meaning he based his design on the specific shortcomings of other preamplifiers he'd used. Released in 1978, Holman's preamplifier did very well. One of the happy owners of the Holman Preamplifier was Craig Todd over at Dolby Labs. He recommended Tom Holman to Jim Kessler, who was in the process of trying to find a chief audio engineer to build a whole new post-production facility for George Lucas. Tom Holman got the job. Once that was done, Holman began a new project to ensure that what people heard in the movie theater was exactly the same as what Lucasfilm heard in their mixing room. Adjusted room acoustics and upgraded sound equipment resulted in Tom Holman's crossover, or Xover, more commonly known as THX. What with George Lucas's whole THX 1138 thing, it was a name he was happy to adopt. This preamp feels much more like a laboratory device than it does a home hi-fi component. The volume steps are locked in, so you get very exact gain. The bass control on this is really cool. With the switch flipped up, you affect the bass in the lower mid-range, but when it's flipped down, you're only affecting the lowest frequencies. The Holman amplifier has two main outs, which really suits my lifestyle because of course I identify as biampule. There are two phono inputs with great customization for different moving magnet cartridges. They put the preamplifier's schematics on the bottom of the device. How cool is that? So it's finally upgrade day, I hope. Right now, I have an NAD C356BEE integrated amplifier. Since it doesn't put out sufficient power for the Snells, I'm only utilizing it as a preamplifier, so there are major components of this thing going completely unused. What if instead I had a device that more succinctly served my specific needs? There's a lot I love about the C356BEE, but there's also some stuff I'm not crazy about. It's my hope that the Holman preamplifier will give me better detail and separation between the elements. The NAD one was released in 2010, whereas the Apt Corp one came out in 1978. Can this piece of gear that has existed on planet Earth for decades compete sonically with much more modern tech from a hi-fi behemoth? Okay, made the switch. Let's hear what happens. It is so much cleaner, and I feel like I can hear David throwing the stereo image all over the place in ways I didn't before, just because everything was so big and robust. Big and robust is awesome, but I really like trying to hear all the details. The Holman Preamplifier for a little over a week at this point, and it has been incredible. I am dumbstruck by how much the NAD amp was the wrong component for our system. The Hurricane Snell soundstage is no longer sonically jam-packed. We just got our daughters the K-pop Demon Hunters soundtrack, and although we've heard the songs dozens of times in the car at this point, playing the vinyl through the Holman preamp, it was like we'd never actually heard the music before. What we thought was golden was just tarnished brass at best. It's astonishing that this sound quality has been here the whole time, just waiting for the proper piece of gear to discover it. If you're putting a hi-fi setup together with separate components, I adamantly demand that you check out the Holman Preamplifier. It seems like you can find one online now between $350 and $700, depending on the condition. A modern-day $700 preamp cannot compete with the equipment that Tom Holman and Frank Campman built in 1978.